Hello everyone and welcome to the grand final of the Armageddon Championship Series 2023. The show with more punch than Rocky Balboa. And we're happy to broadcast live from our studios in Berlin. And I am Grandmaster Simon Williams, and I'm here with my great friend, the brilliant, the affectuous, the amazing, stunning Jovanka Houska, International Master.
Simon, I wasn't expecting that one. But anyway, isn't it exciting? Today is day 5 and it's when the eliminations begin. And we started off the competition with 8 players. Now only 6 are remaining. Those people who've been grayed out means they've left the competition. And still some big names still there.
Yeah, definitely lots of great players to still watch, and it's getting to that end part. We're soon going to have a winner of the first ever Armageddon series, so it's getting very, very exciting.
Yeah, we've seen checkmates, we've seen Armageddons, we've seen all forms of excitement, and yesterday it was a day where it was decided who would be promoted, continue in the upper bracket, and who would get down to their last life. Day 4 began with a massive battle between Gukesh and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Duda with the black pieces played quickly and confidently gave up a pawn for activity. And the gamble paid off as he trapped Gukesh's rook and won. Needing to win, Gukesh played an aggressive opening and soon got that winning position. And suddenly it came down to a crazy Armageddon game. With the white pieces, Gukesh went for Duda's king. But after some inaccuracies, it was Gukesh on the receiving end of a vicious counterattack, leaving Duda victorious.
The second match of the day in the upper bracket saw Humpy take on Nodirbek, a very tough challenge for Humpy, the lower rated player. Humpy came out fighting in the first game, but Nodirbek sealed the victory. This meant Humpy had to win the second match. It looked good for her at one point, but she missed a tactic which sealed her fate, meaning Nodirbek proceeded to the next round. Some very exciting chess there yesterday, and everyone here is in the final. But how did they get to the final? Well, let's have a little look at the events they had to take part in to qualify.
This is the grand finale of Armageddon Championship Series 2023, the ultimate chess showdown of the year. From March till June, we had 4 amazing tournaments: the Americas, Asia and Oceania, Europe and Africa regional series, and a special qualifying stage, Women's Week.
32 of the strongest players competed for a spot in the grand finale, and only 8 of them made it through. All our events are broadcast live from the World Chess Club Berlin on Unter den Linden. This is make or break. Who will make the cut and become the Armageddon Championship winner? Don't go anywhere, this is Armageddon. So they are playing for a lot of money. Look at that first prize of 80,000 euros. And at the moment, Jan-Krzysztof Duda and Nodirbek are through and they've got 20,000. But all those players with the lines are trying to catch them up. Only Sam and Bibisara are guaranteed that 10,000, but no more. So very exciting point in the tournament.
Yeah, and of course, this would not happen without our sponsors. And as a technology and digital privacy company, Kaspersky supports the secure advancement of chess in the digital space and its expansion into online tournaments. A perfect combination of human excellence and strong technology.
And let's also have a look at whereabouts we are in this tournament and the bracket. And we have to remember it all started with that random draw, and we're now to day 5 in the lower bracket. And I love days like this because the tension is double. The losers today are going home. Sounds a bit cruel, but that's the way we rock and roll here.
It certainly is. And because it's day 5 of the tournament, we're getting close to the start now. Let's have a look at today's pairings. And first up, it is Humpy Koneru taking on Wesley So. And then Richard Rapport, the creative genius, will face 17-year-old Gukesh.
Yeah, some massive, massive pairings. And our first match is Humpy versus Wesley. And these two players have never actually played before. I think it's fair to say Wesley is the favorite, but you never know. And let's now take a bit more of a deep dive into the players.
And there we can see some of Humpy's stats. She became a grandmaster at 15 years old. She's been one of the leading women's players in the world for many, many years now. She's been 2019 Women's World Rapid Champion, as well as BBC Indian Sportswoman of the Year. She has a very resourceful style as well. But let's hear more about Humpy in her own words.
My qualifying week is quite exciting. I was in a must-win situation to stay alive in the tournament, and I managed to do so till the end. And again in the finals, we played a match and I lost to Bibisara. So it was a very exciting tournament, and I believe especially in this format, nobody is perfect, things has to work out well. It's important to, focus on the game because there is not much of a time to recover from the loss. So it's important to stay more focused. I like this place very much, and it's more entertaining. It's completely different from the professional tournaments we play because there most of the time it's classical and rapid, and that too it's a bleach format with Armageddon included. It's more fun.
And her opponent is one of the strongest players in the world. It's Wesley So Solid Crew So. And Wesley was a grandmaster at the age of 15. He's three-time US of A champion, and he is really just one of the elite players, one of the top players in the world, one of the favorites for this competition. And let's hear a bit more from Wesley now.
Well, I was really looking forward to this event. I'm very glad to be back. I have pleasant memories in Berlin. I generally play very well here. I love the people, I love the food. So yeah, I'm very happy to be back. Yeah, I think this week maybe the player to beat is Jan-Krzysztof Duda. He's a very good speed player, and also he's been in very good form lately, at least in terms of faster time controls. To be able to win the first Armageddon Championship just would be like a dream come true.
Now, a big power battle coming up, and we are less than 1 minute from the start of play. And let's remind ourselves of the rules. The players will be playing 2 games of blitz, a time control of 3 minutes plus 2-second time bonus per move. And if the match is tied after these 2 games, everything, and I mean in this case everything, will be decided by
Armageddon. And that's where white gets 5 minutes, black gets 4 minutes, but white has to win and no more time is added on. And we see our fantastic arbiter there, Anastasia. Anastasia does step in if the players start kicking each other under the table. We hope that doesn't happen today.
And we are less than 15 seconds away from the start of play. And there we see the players. We see Humpy with the white pieces, Wesley with the black. And Humpy will be looking to make an impression when she starts out. What's she going to open with?
I think Humpy must start with her normal game, just play her normal game. It's fair to say that Wesley is the big favourite here, being much higher rated, but Humpy has been playing some great chess. I just hope she moves a little bit quicker at the start of the game. We see a Queen's Gambit on the board, and a very traditional Queen's Gambit. This is one of the oldest positions recorded in chess, one of the oldest openings, and this bishop move also a very standard way of playing.
Yes, this has been seen time immemorial. And I was wondering when Wesley was planning to shake things up, and here it comes with capturing that pawn in the middle. And Humpy playing very carefully there, just stepping forward 1 square with that pawn. And I'm now expecting her to capture a pawn that's up for grabs. There you go. And both players starting with some very high heart rates. Wesley with 143, that's pretty high, and Humpy 139.
Yep, and they're both developing very sensibly, but you're right, Jovanka, look at those heart rates. They're obviously still quite nervous, understandably, in this gladiatorial arena. Wesley playing a very safe setup here, just developing his pieces, getting a symmetrical position. Humpy is in no danger at all at the moment. She must be a little bit better, because her pieces are better developed. She's now castled her king, but she's got to try to convert these very small advantages into something a bit more tangible. Will she move the queen, bring her rooks in? She brings her rooks to the open files. This is good play, and very solid start from both sides here.
It is definitely solid, but I have to say one thing that is a trademark at the minute is how quickly Wesley So is playing, whereas Humpy is almost 1 minute down on the clock. So I'm expecting Humpy just to connect the rooks, overprotect that bishop, and there she goes. But Wesley not in any trouble. I wonder whether he's gonna actually also step forward with his queen and just clear the way for the rooks in the middle of the board. And you can actually track the advantage of the players by looking at the dashboard background. And if one color dominates, well, that means that that side is winning. And there we see, with that knight foray to the edge of the board, Wesley has traded off a set of bishops, which means that the queen now occupies a good square and the rooks are connected. Wesley is one of those pragmatic players. He's happy to draw with black and win with white.
He is indeed, yeah. I mean, I would have thought both players would be quite happy with this middle game. We're now in the middle part of this game because Humpy's style is very positional. She can, of course, play great tactics, but she prefers a quieter game. She's got that with the white pieces. But Wesley is probably not really worse here with the black pieces and has a solid position. And Wesley is so hard to beat. He's a great player, and as they both are, but he's got a position here which is going to be hard to break down. And Humpy now moving her knight to the center, and I'm not sure how either side can. They need to find targets to attack, and that's not very easy to do at the moment, Jovanka. And that last move, well, it looks okay. If Humpy can bring her last rook into the middle and then move the knight forwards, that would be great. But I expect Wesley will go for more exchanges here, and he does. He brings the bad knight, because it's on the side of the board, back into the middle. More pieces getting exchanged. So at the moment, it's looking very drawish. But Jovanka, I do remember Wesley getting a similar kind of position against Sam Shankland and grinding Sam down with the black pieces.
Yeah, he did, and he did it on account of the better squares for his pieces. And there, the rooks both coming into the center, and Humpy now taking care of the king, giving it some air, some places to escape to, and somehow or other you do feel that Wesley is the one who has that slight pull, just because I feel that his bishop is going to be on a better diagonal. And there we see more trades from Humpy, and now black's queen stands on a lovely central square. I'm also expecting that bishop to relocate itself to the c6 square and start pointing towards the white king. And Humpy down on the clock. Look at that, just 35 seconds. This is unwise.
Yeah, she often gets so short a time, and this is one of the weaknesses we're seeing in her play, unfortunately. She plays amazing when she's under 20 seconds, but you can only play to a certain level. And I agree with what you're saying, Jovanka. Actually, Wesley has no problems here whatsoever. If you compare the bishops, black's bishop is pointing down towards white's king, but white's bishop is blocked by more pawns, so white's bishop is a little bit less effective. So black has a very small advantage, but a massive advantage on the time here. And look at this. Can the queen now come over and start harassing white's king side? The evaluation bar really liking Wesley's position. Very sensible play from Wesley.
Yeah, I mean, Wesley has his choice of moves. Ooh. I love your idea of just moving the queen, and look at that, Wesley moving his king towards the center, and Humpy again, just 14 seconds left on the clock, and Wesley initiating a trade of rooks. What is he planning to do now? And we just see the evaluation bar line up, and is it because of this move?
Yeah, this is a really nasty move, because after this move, where does the rook go? And now the black rook can come flying in, and doesn't that just win a piece? Can't Wesley move the rook to the second rank all the way into white's position, attacking the queen? has he not seen this move? Rook coming in, attacking the queen. I suppose white can slide the queen out, threatening checkmate. This is the one saving idea that has, but then your bishop comes back to block. Why doesn't that win, Jovanka?
Yeah, I mean, putting the rook on the second line.
Play it.
He doesn't find it, but okay, this is also good enough as well, because now the pieces can all infiltrate. And look at that. Now a pawn drops. Humpy, only 7 seconds left on the clock. She pushes that pawn forward, but that pawn is now a target. Remember, Wesley doesn't take too many risks. And now he initiates a set of trades. Humpy says Humpy has to allow it. And I'm expecting a check.
A useful check there, forcing white to play a move that she doesn't want to play, and she's very short time. Humpy as well. Black is a pawn up.
He can win another pawn as well.
Yeah.
He can just trade off rooks.
And win another pawn.
And okay, instead he...
This is also very good. Winning the pawn straight away. Wesley 2 pawns up. He's played so smoothly in this game, not taking any risks and really just outplaying Humpy. Look at Wesley's heart rate though. It's gone up to 170. He realizes the win is in his sights, and if he keeps his cool, he will take the first game.
5. And Humpy moving the queen to the center. Of course, she still can play on. She still has some chances of salvaging the draw. And now, well, not if Wesley keeps on playing like this. And now some pawns get traded, and white's king is very exposed. And ultimately, Wesley can start marching up those pawns like...
And they're coming. The black pawns are racing forwards. Humpy is trying to create some counterplay in the middle, but black's king seems to be pretty safe for me. It's the white king which is in more danger. On both sides of the board, white is in trouble. That pawn is trying to become a queen, but on the other side, look at the white king. That does not look safe to me. Put the king somewhere safe if you can. You can't. And Wesley just improving his position slowly. I like this move from Humpy though. You got to gamble. You got to try to create some chances, but that king looks so exposed.
Yeah, Humpy is in full-on hustle mode, advancing with the king now. But after this trade of queens, it is all over for Humpy, and she is offering another set of trades. But ultimately, all Wesley needs to do is break that blockade down, and the pawn will be queening. Okay, here it comes, the second one, and there we see it. Wesley takes the first game. Very smooth performance there from the 3-time American champion.
That was indeed. I mean, interesting strategy there from Wesley to win that game. He knew that Humpy's strengths were in those kind of quiet positions, but he didn't care. He's also very good in those quiet positions. He has a lot of faith in his own ability to outplay his opponents, and that is something, having belief in every kind of stage of the game, is so important. You've got to have that confidence to do well, and he did have that confidence there.
Yeah, I mean, just look at it. I think Humpy was just simply too acquiescent in exchanging those pieces, because suddenly Wesley gets a great bishop. His queen is nicely centralized there, and Humpy is the one left floundering, and she doesn't have that much time on the clock.
No, and yeah, that was the problem. The bishop was the first problem, and we saw around here that there was a couple of good moves, but Wesley moving his queen in, and Wesley had the more active pieces. First of all, you kick the rook away, and now Humpy's rook has to leave the open active file, go passive, and that allowed room for the black queen to jump in and start picking up pawns. And you can see here Wesley had won some pawns, and he finishes the game off so well. This is what they say is only a matter of technique, and the top players, they win one games so well. They keep concentrating, they don't give their opponent any chances, and Wesley was able to do that, to convert the game into a win there.
Yeah, he did it so cleanly as well, and here is the moment where it's all over. The queens have traded themselves off, and all Wesley has to do is remove that bishop from the A2 square, and once the king moves forward, Wesley continues pushing those pawns, and that is it. And now we're 1 minute away from the second game. This time Humpy will have the black pieces. It's a big ask to win on demand with the black pieces against someone as solid as Wesley.
It is, yeah. But she's got to try to mix it up for, I say for a change, because their style of play is normally very solid, but she's got to take risks. She's got to play something a little bit crazy here, and she's got to unbalance it. It's going to be really tough, though, with black against Wesley. Wesley is so well experienced that he can generally decide with the white pieces how he wants the game to go, as he actually managed to do with the black pieces there. And what do we expect the opening to be here? Maybe Wesley will play the king's pawn, and Humpy, she might have to try a Sicilian or something.
Yeah, she's gonna have to unsettle things. I mean, maybe we might see something as fancy as a perk or a modern, but Humpy, it's your last chance to remain in this competition. You gotta go for it. Pull that rabbit out of the hat. And, well, no, Wesley opening with the cowboy 1b3. And Humpy just developing the knight. Remember, Wesley had great success in this opening against Sam Shankland.
Yeah, this is a way to avoid most theory, and Wesley's been playing this quite a bit, actually. He's been playing it in some tournaments as well, and Humpy just copying Wesley's tactic. It's called a bit like copycat here, but in order to win, she doesn't really want a symmetrical position. She wants to play something which will mix it up. So she does. She changed tactics here. She pushes the pawn in front of her king, develops her bishop to a different square, and the action in this game is going to come a bit later on, I feel, Jovanka, like in the middle game or maybe in the ending here. And it now looks like an English opening, and even changing to a d4 opening now.
Yes, and now it's a big question for Humpy. How is she going to play with her pawns? For instance, is she going to step the queen's pawn 2 squares forward, just challenge for space? That would be the classical approach. Or is she going to play a little bit more dynamically and open up with just one pawn? And instead she's going for a very solid technique, reinforcing the advance of this pawn. This is okay, but it's not the most ambitious setup.
I totally agree with you, and I don't think she's really taken the opportunity to go for those complications which we feel she needs to. When you're playing something like this, you can see she's created a kind of pyramid, Humpy, in the middle of the board, but it's made her bishop, especially her light square bishop, very bad. Look at black's light square bishop. It's got 2 pawns in its way. Now, white's bishops aren't fantastic, but they have more potential to open up. White has a pawn break, which he's preparing to play. He's preparing to play e4, move that pawn next to the queen 2 squares, which will open up both of white's bishops here. So, and the time, again, this is also so important. Wesley's pace of play is really good. He's keeping that pace up to a very good momentum going.
Yeah, and well, this is crunch time for Wesley. Is he going to push that pawn in the middle 2 squares and create chaos in the center? Well, he decides he's going to build it up for the time being. And now will Humpy break out? No, she connects the rook. I mean, both sides playing in a very cagey way. And finally, there is a breakout. Wesley So breaking in the center.
And this is the move I mentioned about getting those bishops into the game, trying to open up the white bishops. And this is what you want to do when you have bishops. You've got to give them lines to attack on. And we see some exchanges. So Humpy kind of loses that main point of the pyramid there in the center. But she's still very solid here. But being solid's not going to be enough to win. And that time as well, she's over a minute down already. And I must say, I feel that white's got a little advantage here. More space. You can see white's pawns are further up the board compared to black's pawns. Having more space, again, it's like that battlefield analogy where you can maneuver your troops to better positions. They have more air to breathe with more battlegrounds for them to move to.
Yeah, definitely. And Humpy just thinking a bit, how can she unbalance the position? It's going to be very easy, but she breaks out now, liberating the light squared bishop. And now the question is on Wesley. Is Wesley going to reinforce that knight? Is he going to make some trades and then try to eliminate everything from the board? In which case that would be very handy if you wanted to get a draw.
I like that move, though, from Humpy. I mean, as you say, that was a good, aggressive move as well. And Wesley could even try to start an attack here by moving a knight over to the right-hand side. But no, Wesley going in the center. And as you said, Jovanka, exchanges might help him get nearer to a draw. I feel with that move, he's going for exchanges.
Yeah, and that's something that he can do. He can bully Humpy with the idea of a draw.
That's not very nice.
It's not nice, but chess is not a nice game. It's quite a cruel sport. And there we can see, talking about cruelness, Humpy just over 30 seconds left on the clock, and she agrees to a trade of knights. Ultimately, Humpy is doing fine. It's just whether she can generate enough winning chances here.
Yes, you might have to swap off more pieces here. You could see the knight taking white's knight in the middle, and then the bishops will come off, and you're getting nearer and nearer to the end part of the game without creating enough opportunity. So she plays an interesting move there. Bishop takes, and this is going to probably force many exchanges. Okay, she moves her rook, attacking the white queen. Interesting idea there. The queen simply retreats, and we get those exchanges. And this is why I was talking about Wesley trying to really control the game with the white pieces. He didn't want to take too many risks. He just wanted to keep control, and more pieces coming off. You've got to be careful, Humpy. You've got to keep some pieces on. You need to win this game. You've got to keep some pieces on the board, and I just don't see her having enough pieces at the moment, Jovanka, in this position.
No, and of course, you know, white's queen is magnificently placed there in the center. It's got his eyes all over the board, and Humpy having to make a defensive move, and it is Wesley that is the one pushing hard for that plan of improvement. Okay, so Wesley now retreating the queen, attacking that pawn on the right side.
Well, 2 pawns are under attack here. This is actually a bit critical for black, for Humpy. She's had to give 1 pawn up, but if Wesley takes the pawn on the right-hand side, the h5 pawn, it would allow black's queen to come into the middle of the board, and that could be actually quite dangerous to Wesley. Maybe Wesley should just move the king around here.
Or he can even bully Humpy with the idea of a perpetual check. And no, Wesley, he is a fantastic calculator, and he decides he is going to grab material, and Humpy's queen has been released from its cage, and now it's out, and the queen is attacking that pawn on a2. Not an easy pawn to defend.
I thought this was a bit risky for Wesley, Jovanka. Yes, Wesley's a pawn up, but you've allowed your opponent's queen into the position.
I agree with you there, Simon, but I think Wesley is banking on the black king being in an unsafe position. I think he's thinking that he can lift up the h-pawn 1 more square and then just throw in some checks here and there to dislodge the king.
Yeah, good foresight there from Jovanka, but it is getting now a bit complicated because we have a very unsymmetrical position. It's a risky position, and you know, this, if the queens come off, I can actually see white being in a little bit of trouble here. The black queen centralizing itself again, the evaluation bar suddenly saying Humpy is better here. So I don't think this is a good strategy from Wesley. He didn't need to take these many risks, and now the queens are being off, and Humpy decides to keep the queens on the board. Look at her advantage though. It's getting quite serious now. We could see an amazing upset here. The bishop joining in as well.
I mean, I love the way that Humpy has coordinated her forces, and if she could somehow get that outside pass pawn that she has motoring, then she will be doing very well indeed. And Wesley throwing in a check, bishop steps back to block, and Wesley winning material. But okay, and then I thought Wesley was gonna play another move. Instead, Wesley overprotects his pawn, and Humpy giving some checks.
And Humpy keeping the queens on the board because this will give her more winning chances. And it's still very hard for black to make progress in this position. How does black actually win this? Wesley just moving the queen backwards and forwards, gaining some time. Heart rates very high here. The time very low here. They're both got to play exceptional chess to make sure they don't make a mistake. And here we see Wesley moving forwards on the king side, using his king as well. Is there any way Humpy can create more chances here? Wesley's defended so well at the moment.
Wesley's playing very ambitiously. You know, he's not taking care of his king. If his strategy, or if he loses control, it will backfire, and Humpy will be the one winning. And now Humpy attacking the pawn. I didn't think that Wesley needed to do this. And the queen coming in to attack the bishop. A check.
And
This is so close.
But now, what a move there from Wesley. This move starts to create threats against Humpy's king, and that's why she resigns, because on the next move, that queen was going to come over into f7, checking black's king, and Humpy was just not in a good position to defend against that. She fought so well when she got short of time, but the problem is, when you're so short of time, you're going to make more mistakes.
Right, and she allowed that pawn to reach the 6th row. Yeah, I mean, you can only hold your nerve for so long when you're playing with so little time on the clock, and that's what happened to Humpy. 20 moves, I think. 20 and 30 to 30 moves, playing with 5 seconds on the clock is the max.
She played so well. I mean, that game, she had so many chances, and if she didn't need to win, she would have got an easy draw there. But all credit to Wesley as well. Wesley kind of did do the business. He won the first game, and he didn't let Humpy get enough from that second game. And we can see some of the highlights here. And this is where many pieces got whipped off the board. There goes the first one. Here comes some more. They're all getting off the board. And this put Humpy in a bit of a tricky position, but she played that end part of the game brilliantly. And we know she's one of the best endgame players around, and she kind of proved that to pressurize Wesley. You can see here, Wesley taking that pawn, but this allowed Humpy's queen to get active.
Yeah, and it was a really committal decision there from Wesley to allow the queen to get active, but in the end it was a gamble that paid off. Wesley had seen that one move deeper, and here it looked like Humpy was in full control. Maybe she could have gotten some counterplay, but with this move, nope. That's it. It's all over. Yeah,
because Humpy was losing the bishop there and probably getting checkmated as well, because that pawn set up a very vicious check with the queen. So it was tough for Humpy throughout this competition, and she is going home now, unfortunately. She fought so hard. She proved that she can play these guys and beat them, but her time handling didn't quite seem to be good enough.
Yeah, it was close, but no cigar.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's tough luck for Humpy. And let's go over to Dina, who has an interview with Humpy.
Humpy, that was a very tense fight. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way. But second game was actually really nice for you to get some chances.
Well, it was very much equal position, but then I got this a2 pawn, and it was very slight scope to, continue further. Probably I should have exchanged the queens and tried the end game, but okay, it was very. It was not an advantage position. It was just a game. I think my first game, I just due to lack of time, I just started blundering very fast, and I lost the control over the position.
Do you think you took 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes in the first middle game in the first game because you were, let's say, nervous, or the position was causing you some questions?
Yeah, the position was like more or less equal, and probably I should have went for much more sharper line. Yeah.
So this ends your performance here in Armageddon. How did it feel?
Well, it was a great experience playing with the world's best players, and I think there are a lot of things I have learned from here with their way of play. And I also would like to thank the organizers for this wonderful tournament with a very innovative idea.
Thank you, Humpy. We certainly hope to see you again back in Berlin next year.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Dina, and it's a great pleasure to have Wesley with us here in the studio after you've just beaten Humpy. So talk us through that match. It looked quite smooth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew Humpy was a very strong, very solid player, one of the very best women chess players ever. I mean, has she been a world champion or no? Okay, but she's very close. She's up there. But I was watching her games from the tournament, and I noticed that she has quite poor time management, even in her match against Bibisara. So I figure I could take advantage of that. And if we went to Armageddon, I wouldn't mind it at all with either caller. Yeah, I mean, in the first game, the position was equal, but she spent loads of time, and I figured with almost a 2-minute time advantage, I was gonna have some chances. And she started making small mistakes with the H3 was a bit slow, that she could play bishop d3, bishop e4. Also, when she played b4, that was a weakening. Like after rook d1, she had to take with the queen. Well, when she took with the rook, she got lost position. But my my time management also wasn't perfect. Also wasn't the best, but was enough. And when you need a draw in the white game, it's not as not very difficult.
But you didn't just play for a draw though, because at the end you were pushing for the win.
No, I was playing for a draw. Like, so maybe I pretended to play for a win by taking the pawn h5.
A little bluff there, maybe. So like,
Yeah.
A little bluff.
I was gonna play queen a8, but I decided to be slightly more courageous and take that pawn. Like
Take the pawn.
yeah.
Sensible stuff. So,
Yeah, I pretended, but fortunately, I don't think she ever had any winning chances because maybe her only chance was to play a quick a6, b5,
Right.
because she wasted time playing all the queen checks.
trying to get a pass pawn
Yeah.
on the queen side, maybe. So yeah.
Yeah, and and it doesn't seem that easy. But as you mentioned, she was always in time trouble.
And Wesley, you're kind of known on the circuit as being really, obviously one of the best players in the world, but
Thank you.
incredibly hard to
kind.
beat. You've got a very solid sort of way of playing when you want to, and you kind of showed that, I guess, in those games there.
Thank you.
I mean, could you sum up your style? Is it just a very versatile style that you have?
It didn't used to be that way. When I was much younger, like when I was 10, I would always play one e4 and always play the Sicilian. And I could never play the endgame or positional play at that time. But when I turned 16, I started working on 1d4 openings. So I got this Boris Avruk book.
Okay. Yeah. More positional kind of
Yeah.
style. I need to start learning how to do this at some point.
Yeah, and I forced myself to study Catalan or Fianchetto variations.
Okay.
And then when I started playing more 2700 players, I figured that it's good to not to lose too many games.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I think I'm not especially happy with my style, but
No, I think it's a good style, you know, because you can turn it on when you need to. When you need to win, you can go that way as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I described it as powerful. And Wesley,
thank you.
are you ready for some good
Also,
news
and even good news
or some bad news?
It's Nodirbek's birthday. That's it.
it is.
It is Nodirbek's
My
19th.
heart rate. That's a
Yeah. So here comes your heart rate. Highest heart rate 174. I can't quite recall. Is that higher than?
I thought I reached 177 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I reached 177 2 days ago.
Okay. Well.
So you're a bit calmer today. Good to see. Good to see you're relaxing into the tournament there as the days go on. And Humpy had but it seems to be normal. And you do seem quite calm though as well. And you said you feel reasonably calm when you're playing.
Yeah, I think I think as Magnus pointed out in an interview a couple of days ago, I tend to tilt a lot. Like my play has been very uneven.
Yes. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
also difficult being a professional chess player trying to keep your mental health and balance.
Oh, it is. Yeah, and that's one of the very important things we all need to do, I think. So yeah, I know from my own experience. So,
But wait, you're called Ginger GM not for anything, right? I read in the magazine that you almost won Game of the Year this year.
Oh right,
Yeah.
maybe we'll see. Occasionally I have a good game. Occasionally,
you sacrificed some pieces and made the king run.
That's right. Yes.
We were trying to remember the name of your opponent.
Oh yes, he's a very very famous player as well. But it's nice. I occasionally get a good game. But let's also have a look at the brackets, Wesley, and see who you could be playing. And it's going to get tougher now, obviously, as we're getting near the end. But what do you think of the next match of the day, Richard versus Gukesh?
Yeah, I think I think Richard's play has been dominating. Also, I've been watching his games. Like he was beating Nodirbek the other day, and then during the qualifier a few tournaments ago, he was also dominating. He didn't lose a match.
They play very well, yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be my pick.
Yeah.
But it's not because Gukesh beat me. Like, nothing personal. I think, I think Richard, I think Richard has been dominating. Also, I've been watching his games. Like he was beating Nodirbek the other day, and then during the qualifier a few tournaments ago, he was also dominating. He didn't lose a match. Yeah, so he'll be my pick. Yeah. But it's not because Gukesh beat me. Like, nothing personal. Like, I think probably Richard is a very good blitz player. It's quite weird because he told me in the Grandchester events that he always does well in rapid and not in blitz. But here he's doing well in blitz. And but with 2-game match, of course, anybody's game. But it's going to be competitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Wesley, you get some rest as well now, and enjoy some of Berlin before the next end of the tournament. And well done today.
Thank you.
You did really well. So
It's been a long, hard day.
it has, yeah. So rest now. Not so long, but it's been a couple of games of hard work.
It's been intense. Good
Thanks,
luck, Wesley,
everybody.
in the rest of the games.
Thank you.
The FIDE Online Arena hosts rated tournaments and games 24 hours per day. So join the arena and you'll get a FIDE ID, a profile on FIDE.com, access to a pro chess community, free access to prize money tournaments, and so much more. So play official games at chessarena.com.
And we're now back with our second match of the day, and this is going to be a very close affair, I feel. We have Richard, who was so dominant in the heat stages against the #1 player in India, the fantastic Gukesh. And I have to say, I really don't know which way this match is going to go.
Yeah, this one is going to be very closely contested. And during the interview, Richard was a bit pessimistic about his chances. But in fact, he is the one leading in his encounter against Gukesh.
And let's just have a deep dive at the players. And Richard was a grandmaster at a very young age of 13. He's also been European rapid champion. And look at that, he's been playing chess for a while because he's under 10 European champion, but clearly a very talented player. And we'll hear more about him now as well.
2023 was a staggering year for Richard Rapport's resume, confirming his status as fans' favourite. In the Europe and Africa leg of the Armageddon series, he was altogether ruthless. He first punched his ticket to the winner's bracket in an Armageddon game by defeating Netherlands' #2 player Jordan van Forest 2-1 before getting the better of France's Maxime Vachier-Lagrave 1-5-0-5. In the semis, he gave 2021 World Cup winner Jan-Krzysztof Duda no chance and reached the final where they would meet again, as Duda claimed his spot from the jaws of elimination. Rapport showed no mercy there, inflicting the young Pole a severe 2-0 score. Intuition, creativity, trust in his systems, it seemed like Richard was simply untouchable during the tournament. Will he be able to repeat that feat in the grand finale?
Well, we will see, because in his way stands 17-year-old Gukesh. And Gukesh is one mighty fine customer. Look at this. Became a grandmaster at the tender age of 12 years old. He also won the gold medal at the Olympiad for his individual board performance, and he's also been the third youngest grandmaster in the history of chess. And he now entered the top 10 of the world and actually is now India's #1 rated player. Let's hear more from Gukesh in his own words.
My qualifying week was very enjoyable. I won the tournament, and playing against world champion Kramnik, it went to the Armageddon, and it was a very thrilling match. And obviously the final match against Abdusattorov was also very thrilling, and managed to play a very good game in the final decisive game. So that's something that I'm really happy about. The biggest lesson I learned from the qualifying week was to manage my nerves. Sometimes I took some nervous decisions. I'll try to keep more calm this time. It's very nice to be back in Berlin for the final. I'm really looking forward to this final, and a lot of strong players, a lot of interesting challenges. We'll try to have a lot of fun and hope to play good chess. Almost everyone in this field is very strong. Anyone can pull off anything in this tournament. I'll just try to focus on my game, do my job properly, and see where it goes.
Yeah, this is going to be a really close match, I feel, and I'm very excited about this one. Both players on paper are quite evenly matched, and who's going to perform on the day? Get your bets on now. Are you going for Richard or are you going for Gukesh? Jovanka, Gukesh or Richard?
Yeah, another cocktail bet there, Simon.
Of course. Go for it.
Okay, I'm going Gukesh.
I'm going to go Richard then, even though I said Gukesh to Wesley earlier. So Team Richard here, Team Gukesh, and we just want to see some good chess. 30 seconds until the start. Richard seems to have the advantage of the white pieces, and I think what he needs to do is really surprise Gukesh, but he is the master at surprising his opponents. He has loads of exciting and maverick ways to start the game. I think he's got to use one of them in this game. What move are we going to see here?
We're probably going to see maybe the knight come out first. Richard really likes his systems and that he's worked on creatively, and well, lights, camera, action, they are off, and it's the king's pawn that has been deployed, and there is the unusual system. Has been played before, but is very unusual at this level.
Yeah, so we don't often see white's bishop coming out, but nothing really seems to surprise Gukesh. He's such a hard worker. What amazes me about Gukesh is his maturity at this age. I remember when I was that age, I certainly wasn't as mature as this player. And we have an interesting position already where white has the two bishops, but if you look at white's pawns, they're maybe not ideal, and black has more space in the center of the board. Richard, though, playing an aggressive move there, throwing the knight towards Gukesh's king.
And both players just seemingly reeling out those moves, indicating that they're both in their preparation. But this move has taken Gukesh by surprise. It's a bit of a weird and wonderful move because it's just the knight that is headed towards black's king. And at first sight, it looks like it can be easily parried by developing the light square bishop or even kicking that knight away. So what is Richard's plan?
Well, there's a little trick here. Knight takes h7 is a big threat on the board, winning a pawn. So if Gukesh doesn't pay attention here, that knight move can go and take that pawn right on the right-hand side, followed by queen check. So this move, the move that Jovanka mentioned, our resident Nostradamus there, thank you, Jovanka.
Thank you.
Always predict the right moves, being the great player you are, stops that idea. Richard now using his rook. That's the advantage of having double pawns. It opens up more files for your rook, and the white rook is zoomy up the board, zooming towards a black pawn. Black doesn't defend that pawn, but kicks the knight away, and I expect that knight to centralize now. I kind of like what Richard's done here. I like the way he's played a rather different kind of opening. This is proper Richard, and this is why he's one of my favorite players to watch. You never know what to expect. You never know what openings he's going to play, but it's nearly always something imaginative, and he does centralize that knight, even though the computer maybe doesn't like that. The evaluation bar dropping a bit after that move.
And Gukesh now has some choices. You know, he can actually step back with that knight in the center and ask a question to the light square bishop. He can even try to harass the bishop in another way by moving the knight that's sitting on c6 and attack that bishop. But, well, he steps back with his knight, and I'm expecting Richard to preserve that bishop. That bishop is, after all, a fantastic piece, and he moves it forward. These guys, they are good. They're going after every single little advantage. Big threat of actually playing bishop takes knight and absolutely ruining the black pawn structure.
Yeah, look at the heart rate as well. Richard's had a high heart rate throughout. He's getting his workout today, 163. Gukesh, very calm player there. White can now do that damage to the pawns if he wants to, but maybe he doesn't want to rush that move. He just stabilizes his knight in the middle of the board, but more importantly, this allows the white queen to come to a very aggressive square. I like this move. The white queen wants to move in front of the white king, aiming at black's king and creating some threats. And this position has a lot of potential, but black has a good hold in the center. Pretty even at the moment, but hang a minute. I haven't even looked at the time, Jovanka. I've only just noticed that Gukesh has fallen asleep.
Well, he did just make a move there, retreating the bishop. I'm expecting this whole idea is that he wants to actually pick up the f-pawn and move it 2 squares, attack the knight in the middle of the board. Richard has to be careful because you don't want to find your knight trapped there in the middle. And yeah, Richard now pausing. He has his choice. He can continue with your plan of moving the queen. And wow.
Oh, that is such a brave move, that one.
But it's ugly. It's ugly because it leaves some holes there for the black pieces to occupy. And Richard don't care though.
He doesn't. I find sometimes the most beautiful things in life are actually ugly on the outside, and that move, it did look ugly because you open up your own king, and white's pawns are doing a very weird spider-like formation there, but it is that white knight in the center which looks pretty good. I mean, it's a very strange position though, and Gukesh playing excellent at the moment. He's not giving any weaknesses away. Very classical style of play from Gukesh here.
Yeah. He's going to get ready to reroute that knight on a very long journey and try to put it on the square that has now been left wide open on f4. So Richard's heart rate gone up to 159 and the clock is ticking down. It's also not really very easy to see a way for Richard to actually conduct something, and there comes the queens. Should Gukesh go into an endgame? And Gukesh says, I'll have that.
I'm surprised by the queen exchange. I thought Richard could move the queen the other way there and try to generate something on the king side. That seemed more his style. But this queen exchange is damage limitation from Richard, I feel. Now, black should be doing a little bit better here because he has no weaknesses and white's pawns are a bit funny later on, but still seems fairly even at this moment in time. The clock situation, not in Gukesh's favor.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say that I fancy black's chances because black has a nice plan. He can put his knight in the middle. There you go, Gukesh. And that knight will eye up 2 very powerful squares. He also has the potential of kicking back the rook. And take a look at the light square bishop. That is targeting a pawn, which must be overprotected. And that's why Richard steps up with his king.
Yeah, Gukesh just playing very sensible moves here. Both sides trying to gain a bit of space. But
Richard breaking the rules. Because the first thing that you're taught is when you are playing with colors of opposite bishops of opposite colors, you put your pawns on the square that is opposite to your opponent's bishop. And he sat there and put them at the edge. And there you go.
He sacrificed a pawn, or has he just blundered a pawn there? Well, Richard is trying to get some dynamic play there by this pawn break. This is his idea. Gukesh just takes that pawn off the board, and Richard wants to try to get something going on the left-hand side of the board. I quite like this idea from Richard, because when your position's getting a little bit worse, but your opponent's short of time, you need to complicate things. And he is now trying to win his pawn back. That rook lined up against black's pawn. Black jumping in with the knight into the center of the board. I think Richard should eliminate this knight. It could get very dangerous otherwise, and I don't know. I'm kind of liking Richard's position now. I feel that his knight is a pretty good piece.
Yeah, I have to say, you know, I'm actually seeing a big turnaround in the position, and Gukesh finding a target to attack, and that's why he's concentrated his forces. But the knight can just step forward in the middle, and how are you going to rescue that rook?
Well, the problem is, I think black is losing. Black is winning a pawn here because the pawn in front of white's king is in a lot of trouble. How do you defend that? Maybe there's a clever way. They're both under 20 seconds now. The knight attacks the rook, and there goes that pawn. So Gukesh going a pawn up, and his rooks look very scary to me. Maybe Richard is still okay, though.
Yeah, I mean, both sides with trumps there, and well, Richard winning a pawn back. And now the rook is there on the second row. I have a suspicion that this game might fizzle out after all the adventure into a draw.
It might well do. They've both now got equal material on the board. They're both very short of time. There's a lot of play left in this position. Which is better, the knight or the bishop? I prefer Richard's pawns, because if he starts pushing them, they're further away from Black's king, so the Black king will find it harder to stop them from queening. And I quite like Richard's knight in the center of the board there. If I was going to pick a color here, I'd certainly pick the white side, but are they going to repeat positions?
Yeah.
It looks very likely.
No, Richard says no. Instead, he pushes his pawns, and look at this. It is a race with both sides advancing their pawn majorities.
Indeed, and
3,
Richard
2.
just he had 1 second left with that move. Phenomenal that he managed to get that in on time. Whose pawns are going to be quicker? And this move, okay, is looking like we're going to get lots of liquidations. But Richard is actually going to go a pawn up now. So Gukesh under some pressure here. There is the pawn up with check. And can he queen that pawn, Richard? Very scary position for Gukesh, this.
Very scary. And just 5 seconds on the clock for Gukesh. And you see the way that Richard is playing, going backwards with the king. And now we're in a rook and pawn ending. And not all rook and pawn endings are drawn. And I'm expecting Richard to drop back with the rook.
Winning.
This looks like it's winning. And now he can get behind his own passed pawn. Get that rook behind the pawn.
Or he can move his king forwards as well. Both of these look good. You can support the pawn with your king. And this is an extra pawn for Richard. And he is now getting a bit greedy. He's going to win a second pawn, I think, Jovanka. This is just winning for Richard. Okay, he's not going for that pawn, but that is going to be a queen. That pawn will be a queen. It's 2 squares away from queening, and this is not going to work. Gukesh in a world of pain here.
Yeah, and there's no way that pawn can be prevented from queening. And it is Richard Rapport that takes that victory home. Wow, what a game.
Yeah, I have to say, brilliant play from Richard there. Gukesh played really well throughout the game. He kept it very traditional. He kept doing the right things. But as soon as it got to the manic stage, where both players were short of time, Richard upped his game there at the critical stage. That's a sign of a champion. That's what you need to do to win the Armageddon series. You need to deal with the pressure. You need to up your game when you only have seconds left.
Yeah.
And he did exactly that there. I think he played fantastically well, Jovanka.
Yeah, and here comes a really bold move from Richard there, grabbing space in the center. I must confess, I did not rate this move very highly, but it seemed to work out in Richard's favor when he traded off the queens.
Yeah, and that was it. The queens came off. It looked like Gukesh was a little bit better, but Richard was using the queen side, this part of the board, with his pawns and his rook. And as Jovanka said, that was a risky pawn push, but he sacrificed the pawn in a minute. And I think this was the turning point. And you've got to take risks sometimes in chess, in life, right? And you can't just try to defend. Sometimes you have to go on the offensive, even if it makes the situation temporary worse. And here we got into the ending, and this part of the game, well, it looked like it might be heading for a draw, but it was actually Richard's pawns that were more deadly. He managed to make them move much quicker up the board and become a queen, basically. There was no way they could be stopped.
Yeah, he used his pawn majority to great effect. And here was the killer moments where Richard is just simply able to advance his passed pawn, and there you go, block the connection of the black rook. And with that pawn move, there is no stopping that pawn from becoming a lady, and that was it.
A lady.
I know.
If you get a pawn to the other end of the board, it becomes a queen, and that's enough to win the game. So this means that Gukesh must strike back in the next game to take it to Armageddon, and Richard's just got to keep things under control here. But Gukesh with the white pieces, and he is phenomenal with the white pieces. Somehow Richard's got to douse out that fire in his opening play, and well, this is, can he do it? I mean, he can do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
Well, you know, we have seen Gukesh also win on demand. Do you remember his match against Jan-Krzysztof Duda? It was crazy, but he was playing with the black pieces and he managed that comeback win. Now he has the white pieces. 15 seconds to compose himself, to reset, to just recharge and get ready. He's facing off against Richard Rapport, one of the best players in the world.
And they're off now, so Gukesh has the advantage of the white bits, and he's got to try and get a win in this game. If Gukesh doesn't get a win, he is out of the competition. This is the stage we're at now. And for that reason, Richard picking quite a solid setup. He threw his bishop in with a check, and he's now just trying to keep some control of the center of the board. And so far, quite normal play. Both sides need to get their knights, bishops out, control the center, get castle. Those are the three basic rules in the opening that everyone should be doing. Control the center with your pawns, get your knights and bishops out, get your king safe. And this position has been seen a number of times before.
And well, Gukesh, listening to your advice there, Simon, and the king is certainly castled, and the rook now steps forward to get ready for the opening in the middle of the board.
Yeah, and this is just the kind of position probably both sides will be quite happy with. Gukesh, because all the pieces remain on. Remember, to win, you need to be able to keep complications alive. But Richard has a solid structure, not too many weaknesses. He's making way for his knight to go back to where that rook was placed, so his knight can help defend his king. And this is really going to heat up very soon, I feel, especially in the middle game. Gukesh will maybe move his light square bishop and put his queen where his light square bishop is. There's many different maneuvers that white can try here because he has a bit more space in the position, a little bit easier for Gukesh to play.
Yeah, and there we see Richard just setting up a pawn formation that I call the wall. And maybe he's going to be thinking about rerouting the bishop actually to the square in front of his own king and getting it on the long diagonal. And Gukesh taking a pause here, thinking about how he can proceed. It's not that easy for white to generate play, especially if black keeps on maintaining control on the center. And well, he's come up with a knight maneuver. And will Richard just continue with his plan of putting that bishop on the long diagonal? Yes.
So we're in that maneuvering stage of the game where, as Jovanka said, they're just trying to get their pieces to decent squares. And that bishop getting out of the way, maybe for white's rooks here. And this is the kind of position that just sort of heats up, and then explodes like popcorn. A popcorn position, I feel. You put it in the microwave and suddenly, bang, it goes everywhere. And I don't know, who's it going to explode in favor of? I'm not sure. And that's why you need to put your pieces in the best position for when it does open up, for when you get those explosions. And they're both doing that at the moment. But it's quite hard to keep finding useful moves in such a position.
Yeah, for both sides, actually. You know, we just saw Gukesh centralize the rook, and now, well, Richard is planning to set up a battery there on the long diagonal, get the queen behind its own bishop and put pressure on the knight. And the big question for Gukesh is, what can he do to improve his position? Is he going to step forward with the h-pawn? Is he going to relinquish control in the center? What can he do? And the answer is not easy at all.
And that bishop might also pop out to the queen side and attack white's rook. I really like that move. In these positions, you just find anything that improves your position a little bit. Gukesh, I know his heart rate's not high, but it's higher than it normally is. It's normally under 100. And I think he's feeling a bit of pressure here. Remember, he has to win this game. And now Richard breaking that tension by capturing in the middle.
Yeah, but the big question is, if you try to capture with the pawn, which is what Gukesh would have wanted, the black bishop would have come out to the h6 square on the right and actually pinned the two rooks.
Very nice idea there by Richard, because now he has this beautiful square for his knight. That knight that's just moved there can never be kicked away by a white pawn. And if we look at the pawn structure, Richard simply has a better pawn structure than Gukesh. So this is getting quite tough for Gukesh. Richard playing a brilliant game today, fighting well in that first game, and here he's playing tactical and positional, a masterpiece so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's really showing a masterclass here. And Gukesh just forced to keep moving his pieces. And, well, Gukesh says now or never. Let's push forward with the h-pawn.
Off we go.
But it might be a bad idea, because what is that pawn doing, especially as it gets stopped?
Well, at some point, you just got to press the turbo button, and I think that's what Gukesh is doing. We have some more exchanges, but Gukesh is trying to find a way into black's king side. The problem is black's pieces are so well positioned. That rook taking the open file, threatening to capture white's queen. Black's knight on the left-hand side, it's beautifully positioned. The bishop on the left-hand side, controlling a square that white's rook wants to go to. Black must be better here. If Richard can keep control, then he's going to go through to the next round.
Yeah, and Gukesh just forced to shuffle the pieces around, and Richard, well, he is in control. What is he going to do? Jump forward with a knight? Is he going to initiate a set of trades? Is he perhaps going to advance a pawn on the left side of the board? No, instead he goes for that plan of improvement. This is good strategy.
And Gukesh really needs to start generating some play. I like that last move from Gukesh. Throw some pieces towards your opponent's king. But how is he going to open up Richard's king? It's not clear. He probably needs to use a pawn at some moment, but he hasn't really got any pawns that can do anything. He's offering some exchanges, but as we know, the more exchanges that are made, the more drawish it becomes. That favors Richard because he only needs that draw to go through to the next round. The rooks now come off. You have to take that one, and then I expect Black can even try to exchange queens here. But Richard playing a semi-aggressive move, moving his knight and trying to exchange the bishops now. Now his bishop in front of his king is looking at White's bishop. He just wants to make exchanges, exchange off those bad pieces.
And Gukesh saying, no, let's keep the tension on the board. Technically, I don't think it's the best move, but on the other hand, when you have so little time on the clock, what can you do? And this is one of the big problems. Richard can simply pin the bishop, and, well, no pieces are getting traded off without a trade of queens, and Richard playing perfect chess.
And we see that knight, though, being exchanged. And I have to say, that knight was one of Black's best pieces. And the evaluation bar also agrees that maybe that wasn't Richard's best try. And it's 2 knights versus 2 bishops. So far in this competition, we have seen the knights dominate, which is a bit strange because bishops are considered better. Do you prefer knights or do you prefer bishops? I have to say here, I actually quite like the knights, Jovanka, but it could be on the clock here as well.
Oh, I like in the bishops, you know, because the problem is that knights don't have any good targets. Because if you grab one of those pawns, well, the power of the bishops get unleashed. And look at that. Richard opening up the position, and Gukesh just 9 seconds on the clock.
Wow, 9 seconds to try and get a win out this position. Can Richard just save everything, keep everything under control? He's on a bit of the defensive at the moment, and his bishops are simply guarding the pawns. You've got to get your king into the game in the ending. That's why we see the king starting to move. Very complicated for 7 seconds, though. This is one of those positions that you could easily blunder, and more pawns coming off. That's got to favor Richard. Remember, he only needs a draw in this position. Richard does have an extra 30 seconds as well. That's got to be useful. Those bishops coming to life a bit more as well now.
I know, this was the big problem with getting greedy and capturing material. And Richard quickly spotting a very nifty counter-attack. And now it's not 2 pairs of bishops, but instead it's a bishop against a knight. And the black king is so well placed in the center. And decision time. Do you capture with a pawn and allow Gukesh an outside pass pawn? Well, luckily for Richard, he has a long-range piece that can act as a defender.
But at least from Gukesh's point of view, he has a passed pawn now. Remember, in the ending, you need to get a queen. I think Gukesh has the advantage here. Definitely. He's got 1 pawn nearest to us that can just keep running up the board at some stage. If Gukesh can get his king in, he's going to be doing well. But his pawns are also on dart squares. Black has a dart square bishop, so they're always going to come under some attack. It's not going to be easy, is it?
It's certainly not going to be easy for Gukesh.
Here it comes.
Well, he's trying, but the black king has that pawn under lock and key.
You've got to try, though.
He's got to push. I thought he was actually going to take the pawn, but he can't.
And he's trying to attack the bishop here. I'm not sure where else that knight's going to go. Maybe come in with a check. Richard just moving the bishop away. And the knight comes back with 1 second again.
Whoa. Okay, and Richard calculating very quickly that he can go into this king and pawn ending. That is very risky because the white king is active.
Yeah, I think Richard is okay here because he always has a pawn break. And if anything, I think it's Richard who is now better. He has the extra
1 second
pawn,
and he's lost on time.
Wow. Well played, Richard, and tough luck, Gukesh. Sad to see such a great player leaving the tournament, but Richard just played excellently in that second game, Jovanka.
Yeah, I mean, I think he played excellently both games. very impressive performance there from Richard Rapport to beat his opponent, Gukesh, 2-0. And I owe you a cocktail.
How many cocktails do you owe me now?
2. And do you know why?
Off to the bar, please.
I keep
I'll wait
betting
here.
on Gukesh. It's like I don't learn.
Oh, you don't learn. And I'm racking up those cocktails, which I'm very happy about because they're lovely here. And yeah, looking forward to that after the show. But very powerful performance by Richard. I mean, he just played great chess. He seemed to be a different person today. We saw around here, this was the first big decision. I didn't see the idea, but Jovanka pointed it out that Richard saw that white can't take with a pawn, which he really wanted to do. And by taking with a knight, he made his position quite a lot worse there.
Yeah, and that was the critical stage in the middle game, and there we saw, well, the back foot is on Gukesh, and now he just starts trying to initiate some chaos by advancing the pawns on the right side of the board, but after the pieces get traded off, it's just very easily fended off by Richard. I mean, great performance. This has really been model play.
Yeah, and saying that, we around about here saw Gukesh get a glimmer of hope. I mean, it wasn't ever quite enough, but we got to an ending, whereas knights managed to sort of create some chaos in the position. Those knights were very tricky to deal with, and there might have been a bit of a nervous moment at that point there.
Yeah, but in the end, Richard just kept proving his class, especially as he's calculated this king and pawn ending. He is in full control and simply steps with the king, gets ready to make some accurate moves, and it's about this point where Gukesh just cannot see a move and lets time run out.
Yeah, at the end there, the problem was the white king can't travel the other way towards the queen side because black has a pawn breaker, will get the queen first. So we're going to go over now to have an interview with Gukesh and Dina.
Gukesh, an easy match today. How would you summarize everything what happened?
Yeah, I just didn't feel very good today. In the first game, he surprised me in the opening. I spent a lot of time, and then the time trouble, it was hard to handle. And yeah, second game just didn't go according to me.
You had 2 knights while your opponent had 2 bishops. It's a well-known fact that knights are better than bishops in blitz game. Do you believe so?
At least not in this case.
You had your chances. Unfortunately, now you have to leave Armageddon. What is overall the experience you got here?
Overall, it was a very nice experience. This final and the qualifying stages. But I hope to do a bit better in the final. But yeah, it's fine.
Imagine you get another chance next year. What are you going to do differently?
Play better, I guess.
All right, well, thank you. Lots of luck in your competitions this year, and hope to see you again in Berlin.
Yeah, thank you.
First match after.
Thank you, Dina, and it's a pleasure to have with us here in the studio the winner of that match, Richard Rapport. And to our eyes, we thought you played a fantastic match.
I don't know. Yeah, it was very nervous match from me. I think my heart rate can tell as well. I didn't really feel well before the start, and yeah, I felt like the first game in particularly, like I completely lost control towards this end game and everything. But then again, you know, it's blitz, and I felt like he underestimated the power of the knight, you know, in a blitz game. Yeah.
We were very impressed with both games, to be fair. I mean, like the second game, it looked like you had pretty good control of it, and you were spotting things well, and you held the ending, even though it's. I mean, were you comfortable, do you think, in the second game throughout? Were you feeling comfortable?
Yeah, I felt like I'm doing really well. Like, especially he missed CD-ED, bishop h6 at some point, so he took his knight, and then it's kind of one-sided. I mean, it should be one-sided, right? But then, yeah, and then I felt like I'm improving, and then, you know, yeah, this e5 was probably a bit rushed, yeah. I just wanted to simplify, but I think maybe if he would not trade on g4, but try bishop f3, maybe it could have been unpleasant, because, you know, I kind of have a concession to make immediately, whether to part with my bishop pair, which is not such a bright news, and if I keep the bishop, then he has a bishop on d5, which is really strong. So yeah, that would have been unpleasant. I think that was after bishop takes g4. I mean, bishop pair usually deals with the knights. Yeah, like it's maybe not in blitz, but you know, I was kind of hopeful that even if I drop a pawn with the bishops getting open diagonals, I can manage to create something. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned your heart rate there, and as you can see, you did get a high heart rate of 176. I think that was slightly lower than it was.
What's the record we've had by
180 something by Lenier.
Okay, so you can try to go for the record heart rate.
No, yeah, I
still.
think this is my personal best. Yeah. So,
This is your personal best. Do you think
Yeah.
you can break that by the end of the tournament?
well, depends when it's the end of the tournament, you know.
Well, you're going to be back for more now, Richard, because you keep getting through, very resilient. And how are you sort of getting ready for the games and stuff? I mean, have you got any secret, just resting as much as
Yeah,
you can?
till now it was heavy medication and trying to sleep, which I didn't do, and trying to, you know, avoid to going to the bathroom too much. Yeah, but now that I'm getting better and recovering better, yeah, it's more chess related. Yeah, let's put it
Yes.
this way.
Well, good news for you because you are playing Wesley So tomorrow.
Yeah, great news.
Nice, easy match for you there, Richard. And how do you feel about that match?
You know, I would have preferred to have a different bracket, yeah, from the start. So, you know, okay, this is, you get what you deserve, yeah, I guess. So, it will be, hopefully I will put up a fight, yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
Okay, well, best of luck, Richard. Then you keep resting, but you played very well today, so well done.
Thanks.
And great news. So we'll just have a little look at some highlights now and be back soon.
And of course, the official partner of the Armageddon Championship Series is IT.com Domains, a domain registry like no other. It provides a platform for anyone to create innovative domains and effectively showcase their online presence. So don't miss this opportunity. Visit IT.com today and create your unique online image.
Well, another great day of chess, and we saw some very exciting games going on there. I mean, Wesley seemed to be in quite dominant form, to be honest, today. I mean, he controlled the match, and he wasn't afraid to take it to Armageddon, as he said. And I think what he also mentioned, which I thought was really clever, was his game plan of seeing that Humpy spends a lot of time. And in chess, you've got to prepare for the battle.
Yeah.
People forget that. You've got to find the weaknesses in your opponent's play. And that is something which, you know, as a chess player is very important, you know, find those weaknesses.
Yeah, and I also was very impressed by Richard Rapport and the way that he dominated that match against Gukesh. Okay, the first game was very up and down, right? You know, anything could have happened between the two, but the second game, it really felt it was just one-way traffic.
Yeah.
And to beat Gukesh 2-0
is incredible.
is incredible, and especially when you think
Very,
that
very impressive.
Gukesh was the one who actually beat Wesley So 2-0 as well in their first encounter.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be amazing tomorrow, but we'll get there shortly. But yeah, what a day of chess. And we've only got a couple of days left until we get to the actual winner of the first Armageddon. So everyone at home, who are you backing now? Who are you rooting for? Who do you think's going to win? I mean, there's some big names. There's the Dudas, there's the So's, there's the Richard Rapports, as we've seen. Who am I missing? I'm missing some other people. Yeah.
The Jan-Krzysztof Duda, you mentioned that one.
Okay.
Nodirbek, the
course.
birthday boy, which we actually have to
and
say,
it
it was
is
his
his birthday.
19th birthday today, so we wish him a happy birthday and to enjoy the cake. That was an offer.
And Nodirbek, well, we can see the pairings here. These are four of the best players in the world. I mean, they're all so talented. They all have big followings, and it's going to be so hard to pick winners out of this one. These matches could honestly go either way, and that's what's going to make tomorrow that much more exciting. They're going to be, I reckon, 2 Armageddons tomorrow. 2 Armageddons.
Well, we will see. Wesley So, Richard Rapports, that will have to be a fight to the death because the players are in the lower bracket, and this means whoever loses leaves the competition.
Who do you think would win out of a fight to death with those 4 players? Not chess, just a fight to the death. Okay, that's another question for the audience at home.
That's another philosophical question that maybe someone somewhere can answer,
Yeah.
but not me. But you know, also we have Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who's been in exceptional form, right? You know, he's played provocatively, he plays super well, and he is facing against Nodirbek, who has new year, new challenges.
Yeah, I mean, they're all great players, so we can't say, but we will find out very, very shortly. And I mean, again, going back to today's play, it seems like Richard's getting better. Every player is just getting that little bit more confidence now, and that's why the quality of play, it's going to be hard for us to follow it, because I think it's going to be this level now, the quality, and very, very exciting. But we will do our best.
Yeah, I think it will be an intense day of action. First up, it will be Wesley So against Richard Rapport. Who will get eliminated from the competition? We will find out. And then, of course, we will find out who gets promoted into the grand finale of the grand finale. Will it be Jan-Krzysztof Duda or Nodirbek Abdusattorov? Well, we'll have to find out when you tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a good night.